What was Paul's thorn in the flesh? Well, for 2,000 years, this question has stumped commentators and inspired a lot of creative interpretations. So there's a consensus that Paul's thorn in 2 Corinthians 12 is symbolic. Paul's not referring to a literal thorn. But what does the thorn represent? Was Paul's thorn a person who opposed him? Was it an illness? Was it persecution? Evil forces? So these are just a few interpretations that have been offered, and some even just throw up their hands and conclude that it's impossible to know the actual identity of Paul's thorn. But I disagree. In 2 Corinthians 12:7, Paul tells us that a thorn in the flesh was given to him. And Paul refers to the thorn specifically as an angel of Satan. Now, most translations obscure and I think ultimately confuse the identity of Paul's thorn by translating the Greek word angelos as messenger. So most likely, the translation in your Bible refers to Paul's thorn as a more generic sounding messenger of Satan. Now, angelos can mean messenger, but considering that Paul indicates that this entity is like a thorn that has penetrated his flesh, it seems more likely that this is a spiritual force. That's why I think it's best to translate and understand Paul's thorn in 2 Corinthians 12:7 as an angel of Satan that inhabits and torments Paul. But of course, that raises the question, why does Paul need such tormenting? And why does he say it was actually given to him? Well, earlier in 2 Corinthians 12, Paul cautiously and cryptically reports that he had been caught up to heaven and received unique visions and revelations which he was not permitted to repeat. Paul tells us then that he was given an angel of Satan to impair and, very importantly, to restrain him from verbally communicating the revelations and visions that he received during his journey to heaven. Famously, Paul then later asked God 3 times to remove the angel of Satan, this thorn that has weakened Paul. But God does not remove his impediment. Rather, God tells Paul that his power will be perfected in Paul's weakness. And in that sense, the script is kind of flipped. Paul remains weak through the restraining and piercing presence of the thorn. But this inability caused by the angel of Satan surprisingly becomes a source of strength for Paul. Admirably, Paul reframes his weakness as an opportunity for God's power to be displayed. If you'd like to learn more about Paul and his Jewish and Greco-Roman context, check out my book, The Weird Apostle. You can find it on Amazon. And don't miss out on any of my new content by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening.